So thank you all so much for joining us for How to Learn a Language Before You Travel with the Traveling Librarian. Join Jeff Klapes, the Traveling Librarian, for a different take on his popular armchair travel presentations. One of the joys of travel is the opportunity to learn about different cultures and ways of life, but language can be a barrier to your experience. This presentation will discuss the many methods and tools you can use to learn a foreign language, taking examples from Jeff's own personal experience in regards to French and Greek. Whether you're planning a short trip or aiming for fluency, this presentation will give you advice and sources to help you on your language learning journey. And Jeff, who needs no introduction, but I'll do it anyway. Jeff is the retired head of reference services at the Lucius Beebe Memorial Library in Wakefield, Massachusetts. And he's an avid traveler and photographer. And I again want to thank the Friends of the Library for sponsoring. So all 100 plus of us who are watching live and the many more that will watch the recording, let's give a big virtual round of applause to Jeff for joining us here today. And Jeff, we have someone from Finland watching, by the way, Jeff.
I just noticed that.
Yeah. So Jeff,
I think I can safely say that I'm not going to learn Finnish before I die.
Okay, there you go. All right, so Jeff, you can take it away. Thanks so much.
Thank you. Thanks, everyone. I'm going to immediately share my screen because otherwise I'll forget. Kalimera se olus ke oles. Bienvenue. I have too many languages in my head. Anyway, for those of you who've been to my programs before, where we are usually going somewhere, this is obviously going to be very different and probably a good bit shorter than my usual programs. But I want to tell you first why I decided to do this, to talk about how to take a linguistic journey, which is essentially what it is when you're learning a language. Whoops, sorry. Learning a language, whether you're traveling or you're doing it as a hobby or for family reasons or whatever, is a way of opening doors to new cultures. It's a way of learning about the rest of the world. It has cognitive benefits. You've all heard how it can help stave off Alzheimer's. It's a generally nice thing to do, and it's fun. But there's a couple of particular reasons why I decided to do this program as part of my regular travel series. And that's first, because I think probably the most common question that I get through doing these programs is about language. Do they speak English there? Do you have to learn Croatian to go to Croatia? So that's very often a concern of people who are interested in traveling the world. The second reason is that as a reference librarian for my whole adult career, one of the most common questions related to language learning was always people who asked me, depending on the time period, as technologies changed, what's the best book? What's the best CD? What's the best internet program? What's the best app? And the answer to that question, of course, is there's no such thing. Just like diet, just like exercise, there is no one answer. There's no one best diet. There's no one best exercise program. The best method for you learning a language or losing weight or getting exercise is the one that you enjoy. It's the method that you keep going back to, that you look forward to doing because you see results and you feel some satisfaction about the progress that you make. So hopefully today, I'm going to talk to you about a variety of different methods that I've used and some that I haven't, just to give you an idea of the scope of things that are out there for learning. Basically, if you learn a language, I think you really need to focus on the 4 different ways of communicating. 2 of those are written, 2 of them are spoken, 2 of them are active, 2 of them are passive. And I'm talking about listening, speaking, reading, and writing. And we'll look at different ways to practice some of those. Another thing that I want to mention before we get started is cut yourself some slack. You know, we're adults now. I'm sure you've probably heard that learning a language as an adult is more difficult and very different from learning as a child. And there is some actual neurological and physiological truth to that. Kids are wired to absorb a lot of language very quickly when they are young. And there's some great books about how that works in the brain. Um, but people often interpret that to mean that adults lose all of that ability and it becomes much more difficult to learn foreign language as an adult. And that's not entirely true. Um, yes, your brain is not the same as it was when you were 4, but there's a lot of other things that play into that as well, which is that when you were a kid, um, whatever your native language was, I'm betting for many of us in this group today, is probably English. But you learned whatever your native language was, you learned it through being constantly exposed, basically your entire waking day, listening to your family members, listening to friends, hearing TV, seeing advertisements, all different ways of immersing yourself in that language. And you also, at the age of 4 or 5, when you were probably pretty good at communicating basic stuff, you weren't reading The Economist, and you weren't writing lengthy college level essays. You were doing basic communication that's appropriate for a 5-year-old. So that's why I say, as an adult learning a language, give yourself a break. You're not 4 anymore, and you are probably not, depending on your circumstances. Most of us who are learning a language as an adult are not doing it in an immersive fashion. You may be taking a class once a week or trying to do a little bit every day, but it's in the middle of your adult life, which has lots of distractions and lots of other responsibilities. And also, you're comparing yourself to your native language proficiency. So, yes, I get very frustrated that I cannot read The Economist in Greek because it's a little bit beyond me, but that's okay. I don't have to read The Economist in Greek. And I hope as you go through your journey, you try to make your expectations and your measures of success reasonable for whatever stage of life you happen to be in. I know a lot of you are here today because you're interested in travel. And so when you travel to a foreign country, you probably are interested in learning a little bit about the language. You're afraid that you won't understand the things that are going on around you. And I can definitely say that something I would recommend to everyone who travels to a place where they speak a foreign language. Give up on the idea that you're going to become fluent in 6 weeks. That's probably not going to happen, and it's okay. Those countries are probably not expecting you to be fluent, but you can learn a good number of basic phrases. You can write them down on a little scrap card. You can print them off the internet. Everybody, I don't care who you are or however bad you are at languages, can probably learn hello, goodbye, good morning, please, thank you, where's the bathroom? And my personal favorite, this is always great at breaking down barriers when you travel, learn how to say something along the lines of your country, your village, your cathedral, your house, whatever, is beautiful. People are proud of where they're from. And when they see visitors coming from another place, there's nothing better for breaking the ice than being able to compliment them on how wonderful you think the place is that they live. The fact that you're bothering to travel there says that to some degree, but being able to say it in their language is a wonderful way to break down some of those barriers. So I should also, to end the introduction, I should mention I am not an expert. I am not a language teacher. But I am a language student, so I'm going to try to share my own experiences and offer some suggestions about what has worked for me, what hasn't worked for me. And I think probably the best advice I could give you is, again, to go back to that. There is no one way to learn a language. You should look at a variety of different approaches and mix and match the things that you get the most enjoyment out of. So to start, I think probably the most important thing to ask yourself before you even begin is, what is your motivation? Why do you want to learn a language? And there are very different motivations, and they mean very different approaches. Each one of these will define success differently, and your expectations will be different. The first one is very often just personal interest. People like learning foreign languages. It's fun. It's a way of just, if you're interested in the world, it's always fun to learn another language. It helps to stimulate your mind, and it may help you make connections with people in your community, or if you are just particularly interested in another culture. Another one is you have some sort of family connection. Your grandparents come from Greece, as mine did, or maybe yours come from Italy or Ireland. And maybe you have relatives who still speak the language. Maybe you spoke it as a child, but you've long since forgotten it and want to get back into it. Maybe you're traveling there to find the village that your Irish grandmother was born in, and you want to be able to speak a little. Another option is it has to do with work. Your company was just bought out by a German firm, and you'll probably mostly speak English with your German colleagues, but you want to learn a little German just because it's nice to be able to do that. Or to go back to family, I forgot one. Maybe your son is marrying a Spanish woman, and you really want to learn some Spanish so that you have a better connection with her. And I think, again, many of you who are on today's program are probably here because you're interested in traveling. You're going to go to Italy for 3 weeks this summer, and you want to just feel like you don't want to feel like a complete foreigner. You want to be able to at least have some basic conversations with people. You want to be able to read the menu at the restaurant or the little sign at the museum. Those are all very reasonable ways, reasonable reasons for wanting to learn a language, but they're very, very different. And so you should, I think about your own expectations, your own motivations, and think about how would I define success for myself? If I take a vacation to Italy for 3 weeks and I come back, how would I define that it was a successful vacation in terms of my language? So think about those things before you even begin your process. So I'm going to go through a few different aspects of language learning, different ways that you can learn a language, and talk about how my experience was in each of those, and also what I think are the pros and cons, and how you can mix or match them for doing different things. One of the most basic, and certainly one of the oldest, is traditional classroom learning. This has changed a lot in recent years because so much new technology is around that not everybody goes to a class anymore. The good thing about going to a class is that you're going to have a teacher. There's a very structured curriculum, and the teacher, hopefully if it's a good teacher, has devised the curriculum to work its way through the different steps in a logical manner. And hopefully if you have a good teacher, preferably one who has experience as a native speaker, you're going to get a lot of personalized feedback. You're going to be able to communicate with the teacher directly. And also, it gives you the opportunity to speak with other classmates who are learning along with you, and you can compare your progress with each other and help each other along. The disadvantage to this kind of learning is that, first of all, you have to find one. And that varies considerably depending on the language. You may be able to very easily find Spanish language lessons in adult ed or other opportunities in the area. But trying to learn, let's say, Ukrainian might be harder because there may not be as many opportunities, and it may depend on where you're physically located. So the availability of those kinds of lessons may not be as good. And of course, your experience, and I've gone through this, I have never actually taken lessons in Greek as a student in this way. And the last time I took French lessons was high school. So that's a long time ago. And more recently, I took some adult ed lessons to learn Spanish, which I'm embarrassed to say. I took, I think, two years of Spanish adult ed. I had a great time. I learned a lot along the way and promptly forgot it because I have almost no opportunity to speak Spanish. So most of it's gone out of my head. But the experience was great because I had a good teacher and I really liked the teacher. And that's another disadvantage to this because you may not like your teacher. You may not like the way they structured the class. You may have other classmates that you just don't really sync with. So that's another thing to take into account. And of course, most of these kinds of lessons also cost money. Even adult ed, they are rarely free, and so you're shelling out money and going for, say, 12 weeks of training. Is it worth it? You know, you have to kind of think about these things. But it can be a very good way to get started, particularly if you're not a good self-motivated learner. And I have found that myself, at least when starting a language, I need somebody to make me do the homework. So having an actual teacher who says, you know, by next Tuesday, you have to do this, is something that I found very, very beneficial for me. Another way that people learn, and particularly these days, and in fact, I think these days it's probably the first thing people think of because they're so popular and there's such a huge variety of options, are language learning apps and mobile tools that you can use on your computer or you can use on your phone. The advantages to these, of course, is that they're incredibly convenient. They're very accessible. You can do them on your tablet, your computer, your phone, wherever you happen to be. They are usually designed to be enjoyable learning experiences. They often allow you to track your progress so that you can remember where you were in the lesson, which words you learned, and to track you can test your pronunciation to see, compare it against the app. And many of them also allow you to focus on very specific skills depending on what you're trying to learn. So again, that can help you if really all you're doing is learning for travel. You don't need to go into the grammar in incredible detail. Maybe you want to just focus on basic phrases, the most common kind of conversational phrases that you would learn. The disadvantages to these are that, and of course it depends on the app, there are limited opportunities for speaking practice. Mostly if you're doing speaking practice, it's going to be against the app, a computer generated, or these days AI voice. Some of them have that as an option and some of them don't. So it's a good idea to try different ones and see whether you like them or not. And the other disadvantage is it's really so technology reliant that you're not going to be communicating with real people. And so that's something to take into account. But it can be a great way to start. And some of the ones that you've probably heard of, these are the best known ones. And I am not recommending any one of these in particular, partly because I honestly haven't used them. I'm familiar with some of them. I've given them a try. But in my own language learning, I have not really used these any more than a little bit. They are Babbel and I think Duolingo are probably among the most widely known. Rosetta Stone also, some of the reasons you might know a lot about these is because of how much advertising they do. So don't assume that just because Duolingo is bombarding you with advertisements means that it's the best. These are probably, I think, the 6 biggest that are out there on the market now, but there are lots of others. And it may depend on which language you're doing, because the language that you want to learn may not be available in Babbel, but it may be available in Pimsleur. So look into that. The other aspect that you have to consider, of course, is pricing. Many, if not all of the ones that I'm showing here, may have a free tier, at least for the point from the point of view of starting to test it out and see if you even like it at all. So I would advise playing with them, download the app, play with it, see if you like it, look at the pricing, because they can vary significantly anywhere from, say, $10 a month to $60 a month. Some of them have lifetime prices where they'll give you a deal if they're going to be more expensive, something like maybe $200 to $400. But if you really like the app, it may be worth it to spend $200 knowing that you can use it indefinitely, that your subscription won't run out. Um, so I think if you're going to try these, try the free version. There's lots of online reviews for these. So go online and read reviews for these different apps and see uh, how people feel about the experience that they had, and especially whether their particular reason for using the app matches up with yours. Because again, it can your motivation for learning may steer you to one of these apps versus another because they have their strengths and weaknesses. I know a lot of people who love Duolingo. I tried Duolingo and decided it wasn't for me, but not because I thought it was a bad application. It's because my language skills were already beyond it. So I think it would have been great if I were immediately starting a language, but my French and my Greek are far beyond what Duolingo is going to teach me at this point. So for me, it just didn't matter. Um, I recently found a new one, this one down in the corner called LanguaTalk, um, which is, as far as I can tell, is free. I've only been using it for 2 or 3 weeks and not very much. The thing I like about it is it's very AI based, and you'll find a lot of these apps, if they aren't already AI based, they're getting into that, um, which LanguaTalk allows for different levels of learning. So you can actually tell it that I'm an advanced learner and really want to work on more complex grammar topics. Or I'm going on vacation and I just want to learn really basic communication, the kinds of conversations you might have in a restaurant or a hotel. You can choose the voice that you're going to communicate with, whether it's a man or a woman, and what their accent is. Uh, you can also choose whether you communicate with the app by writing or by speaking, because you may have a preference, or you can do both. There's another one that I just heard about this week that I haven't looked at that's called Qlango, Qlango. I have not tried that out yet, but I noticed them because they have a special lifetime deal for only $35, which isn't much. So for $35, you can get an unlimited forever deal with Qlango. Um, and also, while we're talking about these kinds of apps, I should also mention that as of this month, Google Translate, which is free and always has been, now includes a live translate option, which I've started to use. I teach English ESL to a Brazilian Portuguese student, and we've been starting to use the live translate option, which is really fantastic. And I noticed Martha in the Q&A was mentioning that there are new AirPods that will automatically translate foreign languages. Technology is really changing very quickly in the last year or two, and I think that's going to continue as more of these kinds of companies adopt AI technology in their platforms. So if you have an opportunity to try out those things, see if it is something that would be worth it for you. I've actually enjoyed the Google Translate thing because I can actually have my Brazilian student is really beginner. His English is almost non-existent, so we do a lot of translating with Google Translate because I don't speak Portuguese. And the live translate, it's just in beta, I think. It just came out in beta this month on Google Translate, and it's surprisingly good. It isn't perfect, but it goes a long way. And if you were traveling, I'm using it in the course of dealing with a student, but it would actually be a very good tool to use if you're traveling in a foreign country and want to just try to um, have a more realistic and fluid conversation with someone. You can tell it, I'm speaking this language, I'm speaking English, she's speaking German, and we can actually go back and forth relatively easily with that technology. So I think definitely play around with these options because they're a lot of fun. Most of them, they may not be free for the long term or to get all the best um, uh, tools and features, but most of them at least have an introductory free level that will give you an idea of how they work and whether you think it's worth pursuing a little bit more. And also, they very often have different tiers. So if you're not totally sure about your commitment, you can start at the cheapest tier, do it for a few weeks or months and see whether you like it and whether it's worth going any further. Another option that you can try, and I think personally I have done this the most in my own experience, is online language learning platforms and individual tutoring and speaking groups, which have really blossomed in the past few years, partly because of technology, and I think partly because of COVID. Many people who would never have done Zoom or online stuff pre-COVID got used to it because during that whole period, we all got used to remote learning and remote meetings and using a technology that we never used before. So more people, I think, are familiar with it and comfortable with it. And so there's a lot more of those options available. The advantages to doing this is that there's a wide range of language courses and resources because they're all over the world. I do several of these remotely with people who are in Greece. We meet on Zoom or Skype or whatever, and it's a great way to meet native speakers all over the world. Another advantage to this method is because you're working with either an outfit or an individual teacher, it's much more flexible. You can decide on your schedule, you can decide on what things you want to learn, and you can pace the learning to the things that you're trying to accomplish. So again, are you trying to learn because your daughter just married a German guy, or are you trying to learn because you're heading to France this fall and hope to at least pick up some basic French in the few months before you leave? And of course, a big part of this is native speakers. Because you can access these people all over the world, finding a native speaker is much easier than it used to be. When I started learning Greek, which was about 10 years ago, before a lot of this became widespread, I was looking for, I decided I'm willing to pay for a Greek tutor. I really need a teacher. I want one-on-one tutoring because I really feel I need that. And I looked for teachers in the Boston area. There were almost no adult ed courses. Greek is just not a common language for that kind of thing. There is a lot of Greek in the Boston area, but it's all based on ancient biblical Greek because of places like divinity schools that are teaching ancient Greek. I don't want to learn ancient Greek. I want to learn modern conversational Greek. So it took me a while to finally discover that in Cambridge, near Harvard Square, there's a little outfit, the Greek Institute. And they offered exactly what I was looking for. So I found a tutor. She lives in Brookline. And many years later, we are still doing weekly classes. She's become a friend. We used to meet in Boston, but during COVID, we moved to Zoom, and now we continue to do Zoom. So I do an hour and a half of private lessons with her every single week. I also I'll show you in a minute the other things I do. The disadvantages to this kind of learning is that it really depends on the teacher, whether it's an in-person teacher in a classroom or a Zoom teacher. It depends on how you click or don't click, whether you like their teaching methods, whether you like the curriculum that they set out for you, and so forth. And of course, on Zoom, there's a little distance. This is another thing that we all learned through COVID, that distance is a great way to be able to keep in touch when there's no alternative, but it does lose something. It's not the same as being in a room with a person speaking in person. So there are those kinds of pros and cons as well. Some of the ones that I've learned used in my own experience, and I'll show you some of these. I started with Easy Greek, which I came across just entirely by accident. I hope you can see my, you should be able to see my web browser. Um, this is Dimitris and Marilu. They live in Athens. And they started something a few years ago called Easy Greek, which is part of a community of language platforms. There's Easy Greek, there's Easy Spanish, there's Easy Polish, there's Easy Turkish, there's Easy German. So it's a thing. Um, and they produce a variety of online content, mostly through YouTube, which is where I found them. They have lots of free videos. And so I started watching their videos, which I really enjoyed. And that's all free, but you can also pay for additional levels that gets you additional content if you choose to. They use a payment platform called Patreon, which you may have heard of. For it's used for a variety of different things online for online content providers and communities. So if you pay, and you can pay $5 a month or $20 a month or whatever, depending on what level you want to be at, you can get podcasts. I love their podcast. They have a weekly half-hour podcast. They have weekly conversation groups. They continue to do the videos, which are free. I do twice weekly conversation groups with them that are on Zoom for an hour with a facilitator in Greece. And I've met all kinds of great people. The other students were mostly on the same level. They have an advanced one and an intermediate one and a beginning one. And I not only have found it immensely helpful to improve my language skills, but I've made the greatest friends. The teachers, the other students, they're all over the world. Many of them are in Europe. Some of them are here in the United States. They're in South America. They're all over. And it's so much fun to meet other students who are going through the same experience you are and to share things. And then you become friends on Facebook, you follow each other on Instagram, and we've become a community, and it's great fun. Easy Greek also does exercises. They produce PDFs with the vocabulary that they learn, and they have in-person meetups every now and then. Depending on where you are. We've done that in Boston. We've done that in Athens. It's a great way to learn. And of course, they have the content is archived. So you have not only the current stuff that they're doing this week, but all the previous stuff that they've done for the past several years. Another one that I use is, let's see, that I also started using is Glossonauts. That's also Greek. It's a play on glossa. Glossa is the Greek word for language. And naut is like astronaut, cosmonaut, glossonaut. Glossonauts, they came up with this name because it's as though we're the crew on a ship that's traveling the world learning foreign languages. It's a great idea. They do the same kind of stuff. They use Patreon. They have all kinds of YouTube content. They do online tutoring, one-on-one or in groups. They do podcasts. They have exercises. They also have chat groups. And similar to Easy Greek, I've made great friends, not only with the teachers. This is Yorgos and Konstantinos, both of whom are now personal friends. I've stayed with them when I've traveled in Greece. They've stayed with us. Konstantinos came to stay with me here in the United States. It's a whole community. And what a great way to learn a language, to become actual friends with the teachers and the students who are all doing things together. I've helped them with their English. They help me with my Greek. italki is another one that I have not personally used, but I've heard great stuff about it. italki is a platform, and again, I'm not recommending this over others because there's a lot of different ones, but italki is one of the best known ones, where you can actually find, if you want, one-on-one lessons with with a teacher who is a native speaker. Let's say you want to learn Italian. They say they have 783 Italian teachers, and you can look into the different ones, explore the different ones. You can come up with a schedule that meets your needs. So it's great for online learning because it depends on your work schedule, your family schedule. You can find a teacher that will work with you for what is most appropriate for what you're trying to accomplish. And again, it's kind of like picking a therapist or picking a doctor. You want someone that you develop a rapport with. And so you can talk to the different teachers. You can try out different teachers and find one that you feel you really click with. And again, the thing with this is it does cost money, although there are often introductory things that you can do to find out, to test it out and see if you like it. You can switch teachers if you just don't really get along with the teacher you picked. And these kinds of things, I think, are really great for the personal tailored lessons that are designed for what your goals are. Again, going back to the very first thing we talked about, why do you want to learn this language? You want a teacher who's going to be able to focus on the stuff that matters to you. And so this is a good way to do that. Italki is, as far as I can tell, is pretty reasonable compared to, I think in general, you can probably expect to pay anywhere from, say, 30 to 60 per hour. That could be dollars or euros. That's kind of a going rate, but it varies significantly. And so that depends on whether you think that's a worthwhile expense, depending on what you're trying to accomplish. But Italki is definitely one of the better known ones, and it's a good place to start. Oh, I should actually go back one slide. Something that also occurs to me here that I should have remembered this. Going back to my French experience, I have no connection with France. I've traveled there many times and I love it. But the only French connection I have is that it's the language I picked when I was in junior high school, and you had to pick a foreign language. So I took 5 years of French in high school and did pretty well. My French was good, but then I went 20 years without speaking French. And at some point later on, I decided I wanted to get back into French to see if how much of it I could remember and see if I could get more fluent. And I looked around for places that I could do. This was pre-internet, so there weren't a lot of the options that I have today. And I was working at the library at the time, and a patron at the library called me up and said, "Do you know if I want to learn some French. Do you know if there's any French conversation groups around?" And I said, "Well, actually, it's funny you should ask because I've been looking for the exact same thing myself." And the answer is not really. The closest ones I could find were either in Boston or considerably far away. And, after work, the last thing I wanted to do was drive all the way into town. But I got to talking with this woman who was local, and we decided, okay, we're two people who want to speak French. So why don't we start our own group? 25 years later, my French conversation group still exists. The woman that I initially talked to is still in the group, and we've had many people come and go over the years. We meet weekly, and it's great fun. We've made a lot of friends. We drink wine, we talk French, and it's been a great way to improve language skills over time. We've also had native speakers in the group, which also helps when you have questions you don't know the answers to. So I mention that because it could be something that you do online. It could also be something that you try to find locally in person. What's the name of that online thing? Is it Meetup? There's a lot of local groups where even if a group doesn't exist, you can try and start one by finding people in your area that might be interested in practicing a language. The other thing that I've done that is harder to do, but can be worth it if you really are looking to get deep into a language, is a real immersive language experience or a language exchange. I did two different ones, which I'll show you in just a sec. These were um, basically I did a 2 week. I did actually two different ones. 2 week immersive language lessons, one on one with a teacher in Greece with native speakers. The advantage to these, obviously, is that you're totally throwing yourself in the deep end, which is hard, but if you want to do it, it's a good way of learning. And I had really nice teachers. I got along with them. They can be in large groups, small groups. I was lucky enough to do it with one-on-one lessons. Um, and there's no better way than to just be with a native speaker and spend all your time focusing on the language. The disadvantage is it can be hard to find, and it may be less structured, and it can also cost money, depending on the language and where you're doing it. One of the people who is in our French conversation group has been going, I think this is either her second or third time. She's in Paris right now doing a 5 week immersive thing where she takes lessons for part of the day, and um, there's cooking classes and there's language lessons, and then you spend time with natives, and then you spend time on your own practicing. There's all kinds of different things in various parts of the world. And it's a great way to throw yourself in the deep end. These are the two that I did. And I found them on the internet. This is on the left, this is me and Elisabeth, who is a native Greek. She married a German, so she speaks German as well. She lives in a gorgeous farmhouse in the middle of nowhere in Greece. She's an amazing cook, and she does these 2 week programs where you focus on language, but also on music and literature and art, cooking. And I did it in November. So November's not a busy time in Greece. So I was the only student. So it was me and Elisabeth staying in her house, and we would spend half the day doing lessons, and then I spent half the day tootling around, exploring the countryside and practicing my Greek with the people I ran across. I also did another one this is Andreas, uh, who I also spent 2 weeks with in another part. These were both in the Peloponnese, which is where my family is from. Again, we spent half the day doing intensive language immersion lessons, and then the rest of the day I spent doing homework, working on my lessons, and exploring and trying to talk to people that I ran into during the day and put my language into practice. Both of them were amazing experiences. They cost some money, but they didn't cost anywhere near as much as you might think. And of course, I can't tell you what's the average cost, because the variety is incredible. It depends on how long and where and which country you're dealing with and so forth. But it's a great way to, again, to make friends, to really immerse yourself in the culture. And the last one I'm going to talk about is self-directed learning, which I think is also a big part of what I've done. The advantages to this is that you have total control. It's you. It's up to you. You can decide what you feel like doing. You can decide your own learning pace, how much time you're going to spend, what areas you want to focus on. It's totally tailored to what you feel like doing. It's also much more cost effective because much of what you can do is completely free, particularly with the internet now. There's so much content out there that you can get without paying a penny. The problems with this method are primarily you really need to be good at self-discipline, and not all of us are good at that. You need to be motivated, you need to have the time and make the time. The other problem is the other problem is you need, when you're learning a language, it's good to have feedback. How well am I doing? And if you don't have that, it's hard to assess your progress. How much am I learning? Is my pronunciation good? Did I use that word correctly or not? What's the difference between these two words that are very similar? You probably need someone to help you with that. Um, but to give you an idea of some of the content that I've used and really enjoyed, and I still do this, basically every day, I'm doing something in Greek, and a mix of things. I've done books. I read all the Harry Potter books in Greek, which sounds overwhelming and difficult, but it really wasn't, because kids' books can be a great way to start learning a language, particularly if it's a book that you already know. Harry Potter, I was a fan of Harry Potter and had already read them all in English. So when you already kind of know the story, um, it's not quite as difficult as reading something that you have where you just don't know anything about what's happening. There's also plenty of content on YouTube. There are tons of videos. Travel videos are great because they're kind of basic, and um, you can there's it's not like watching a movie where there's a complicated plot. Travel and cooking shows are wonderful ways to learn a language because you can see what's going on. And I've enjoyed a lot of things on YouTube. I started oh, I don't know if I turned on the sound, but that doesn't matter. Um, I started when I was first starting with Greek. I started with Peppa Pig, Peppa Tugurunaki. Um, Incredibly basic. I don't use her now because my Greek has surpassed Peppa Pig. But when I was starting, it was great. It's fun. This is how little kids learn language. So don't feel embarrassed about watching very simple things. I found episodes of Friends on in Greek on YouTube. These are great ways to start with the basics and just listen, even if you don't get everything. It's a way to listen. Um, Another one that I've used is whoops, go back. Um, for French, this is someone who was recommended to me years ago. I love this woman who lives in I believe she's in Grenoble in the Alps in France. Um, oh, what's her name? I've already forgotten her name. Um, isn't that terrible? Anyway, she's Commune Française. Geraldine, her name is Geraldine. She is a genuine French teacher, but her videos are wonderful for basic introductory French. She has a variety of different ones that focus on grammar, weird grammar problems, or basic vocabulary, pronunciation, cultural things. Most of them are very short. So you can listen to them once a day, listen to one of these things. Another way to learn foreign languages on YouTube is news broadcasts. Almost any language now, most news providers, whether it's in Uzbekistan or Mexico or Argentina, their local news providers often have a YouTube presence or some kind of internet presence where you can watch brief broadcasts in a foreign language. And a great thing about YouTube is that depends on the video, but you can often control how you view it. And I'll show you a different one. Oops, sorry about that. I keep hitting the wrong button. I follow a guy on YouTube called the Mythologist, and this is a guy who his content is all about Greek mythology, but it's in Greek, and it's at a fairly high intermediate to fluent level. He's definitely not someone I would start with in my language learning. But something I want to show you that his videos do is you can turn on subtitles. It depends on the video. Not all things on YouTube have this, but a significant number of them do. So you can watch a foreign language video and it will provide auto-generated subtitles, and it can depend on the language. In this case, this is in the settings. His subtitles are only available in Greek. Some of them you may be able to get English subtitles, some of them maybe only in the original language. It depends on the video. Another thing that you can do and this again depends on the video, but it's pretty common. You can change the playback speed. So this guy, the mythologist, he talks in a normal conversational speed, but you can also change it. So now I'm sorry, I forgot to turn on the sound, but now he's talking just a little bit slower. It doesn't sound weird, but it's easier to hear. So I find that very useful if you're trying to do something that's a little bit, you're stretching yourself to a little bit beyond your normal level. That's a way that you can view things on YouTube and have more control over how you experience them. Other tools that you can use are things like Google Translate, which I already mentioned. There's also another one, which, to be honest, I prefer. Google Translate is really good at some languages and lousy at others. It's terrible at Greek. So I tend to use DeepL. DeepL is it's very similar to Google Translate, but it's just a different company. And I think their ability to translate Greek is much better. So you can practice with those. Microsoft Translator also exists. There's another one called Quillbot, SmartCat, and of course these days, ChatGPT and all the other AI, both free and subscription models of AI, which you can use to actually create your own personal language lessons with. So that's something that is worth trying, particularly because they're free. Give it a shot. If you don't like it, it doesn't matter. You don't have to keep doing it. There's also, of course, textbooks. Not everybody wants to use a textbook, but sometimes that's a good way to learn. What's the best textbook? I go back to the very beginning thing that I said. There is no best textbook. The best textbook for you is the one you like, where you feel that you can read it easily, you like the way the lessons are presented, and you're likely to continue using it. And the last thing I'm going to talk about, which I love, this for me personally has been one of the best things for my learning, is flashcards. You can do it the old-fashioned way with like 3x5 paper cards. But these days, of course, with technology, there's a wide variety of online versions that do the same thing. You can use other people's flashcards because, of course, anybody who's learning a language, lots of people who have done it before you. So borrow somebody else's flashcards. Or you can keep your own list of the words or phrases or whatever that are of interest to you. I use Quizlet because that's the one I started with, and now I'm kind of committed to it. I have so many flashcards that if I were to switch to a different one, it would be too much work. I have tried Anki, and I really like that one as well. They all have different features, and I have not used Brainscape or Cram, but I've heard good things about it. I've read decent reviews about them. They all have free versions and also paid versions that get you slightly more features. But even the free ones aren't that bad. What I use Quizlet for is I constantly add to my flashcard lists, and every day of the week I do different flashcards. Monday is expressions, like idiomatic expressions. Tuesday is proper names in Greek, mostly like mythology and place names. Wednesday is verbs. Thursday is the imperative tense, because in Greek, the imperative tense is a nightmare. So I make a special point of learning that. Friday is adjectives and adverbs, and Saturday and Sunday are mostly nouns. Is that kind of obsessive compulsive? Maybe. But boy, has it helped me learn words. And the reason for that is that flashcards are a way of doing what in the education biz is called spaced repetition, which has been proven to really be one of the best ways to improve your memory. by repeating things over a period of time with breaks in between. So every week on Friday, I do adjectives and adverbs. And over time, if you keep doing that consistently, it's a good way of imprinting those words in your memory. It's not the only way to do it. You need to then use those words in conversation or in the other aspects of your language learning. But it's a great way to keep track of the words that are important to you because you learned them in the course of talking to someone or in the course of your travels or whatever. If you were planning to travel, you could make sure that you learn expressions about how to describe where I'm from, what is my work, what is my family situation, things that are important to you that you might actually use in conversation. So I definitely highly recommend those as a way to learn to increase your vocabulary in particular. And I love them because you can do them anytime, anywhere. They're on your phone, they're on your tablet, they're on your computer. So when you're traveling, you can have the app on your phone, and while you're taking the train or while you're waiting for your dentist appointment, you can run through your vocab and practice it. So I've really enjoyed those. So in conclusion, what can I say about where you should start? Again, a reminder, this is a journey. You don't learn a language and be done with it. You can go through one of those things like Duolingo and get to the end, but that doesn't mean you've learned Spanish. You will always be improving. You will always be learning, even your native language. That's true. You learn new vocabulary every year. And don't get into that trap where I need to do one thing. Try a variety of different things because it's more variety is more enjoyable for one thing. And it means that if you find yourself bogged down in doing one thing, you can switch and do another for a few days. You're tired of Duolingo? Fine. Watch some videos this week instead, and then go back to Duolingo a week later. And again, go easy on yourself. Cut yourself slack as an adult because you can't spend 24/7 doing this language. But make sure you do a little bit every day. Don't think that if you do it once a week for 45 minutes that's you're going to make major progress. Although 45 minutes a week is better than nothing. So anything you do is okay. And you've probably heard the thing about planting a tree. When's the best day to plant a tree? 20 years ago. What's the second best day to plant a tree? Today. And the same thing is true of language learning. The best day to start doing it is today. If any of you on this program really wish you knew some Italian, fine. When you get off this program, sometime tonight after dinner, turn on YouTube, search for Italian cooking shows in Italian, and watch one for 20 minutes and see what you get out of that. Experiment with all of these things, give them a try, and keep at it. There's no way to learn a language if you're gonna stop. As I said, I learned some Spanish through adult ed a bunch of years ago, but I've never used it. So most of it's gone out of my head. I took 2 years of German when I was in college. Do you think I can remember any German basically other than like where is and basic phrases? I've forgotten all of my German because I don't have any reason to use it and I don't continue with it. So those are my suggestions. And I'm going to turn off my screen share now. And I would love to hear from you guys either through the chat or the comments. This is a program, to be honest, I would prefer to do in person because I think it's one that would definitely benefit more from being able to talk to each other. But with a group this size, we really have to use webinar mode. So let me go through the not actually too many Q&As. Someone asked about upcoming events with me and my website. I don't have a website, but I do have Instagram, which is where I do post any upcoming events. So uh, I will make sure that Robert has that information to send out to you, or you can just find me. I'm Jeff Klapes. I'm at Jeff Klapes on Instagram. Um, but I can also send Robert a list of. I'm traveling for the next few weeks, so I don't actually have too many upcoming events for the next couple of months. But I always post them on Instagram if you want to follow me there, and I will let Robert know of the things I'm definitely aware of. Um, Martha, hi Martha. Martha's in my book group. Have you tried the new Apple AirPods? No, I haven't, but I've heard about them, and what a great idea. If you have an opportunity to try those, um, that would be something I'd love to hear about people's experiences of. Um, I think uh, Google and Android are also premiering that kind of technology as well, where you can actually live translate through the app and right into your ears. But I have not tried it myself. Where did I take Spanish? I took 2 years of Spanish at the Adult Education Center in Wakefield, at the vocational school. It was just convenient, and I really liked it. We had a small group of maybe 8 or 10 people in the class. We all came from very different backgrounds, but really enjoyed each other's company. And I loved my teacher. She was a native speaker from Chile, so she had Chilean Spanish. She married a Puerto Rican guy, so it was interesting to see how their Spanish differed from one part of the world to the other. And we had a really good time. I learned a lot. It's just, as I said, I didn't keep going. And I don't have a reason to speak Spanish, so it's easy to lose. Pat wanted to know how you spell deep. It's Deep, the word deep, followed by the letter L. And to be honest, I don't know if it's pronounced Deeple or Deepel. I should look that up and find out. But it's very similar to Google Translate and Microsoft Translate and all the others. It does a huge variety of languages, and you can translate from one to the other, from any language to any other language. My personal experience with it, with the languages that I know, is I like it better than Google Translate. I think Google Translate's Greek is really lacking. When I've used Google Translate for French and Spanish, I think it's fine. Greek, it doesn't do so well. My personal experiences for Greek, I've used Eagle. But again, it depends. Any of those, if you're really starting with the basics, I used them at the library. I remember times where I had a Russian speaker standing in front of me at the reference desk. My Russian is pretty much zero. Da and yet and das vidanya. That's all I know of Russian. And they didn't know much English, so we used Google Translate to speak back and forth to each other. Was it perfect and fluent? Of course not, but it was good enough to allow us to communicate with each other. So it's definitely better than nothing. Somebody's mentioning Telemundo on TV. Yes, if depending on what TV access you have, there are often, if you have cable TV, there's often news broadcasts in different foreign languages from different parts of the world, often with subtitles, so you can practice languages from those places. If you don't happen to have the language you want on your TV, as I mentioned before, it's very likely on YouTube somewhere or on the internet. If not on YouTube, they may have a website. Someone asked if I used Mango. I did use Mango years ago when the library had it. And Mango was one of the earlier online programs, and I liked it. I think I used it. I might have used it for Greek, I think, at the time. And I enjoyed it, but again, it was one of those that it was very good for basic learning. But once you finish, you finished. So what do you do after that? It had, I don't know, however many lessons. I did it for X number of weeks and I really liked it and I felt I got something out of it. But once it was over, you need to move on to something else. I think it was great um, for introductory learning for a language where you're a real beginner. Rebecca asks, if you're going to learn multiple languages, how much time would you recommend each week to get the most? That's a tough question because I don't know. I do Greek every day, absolutely every day, because that's what I'm trying to become most fluent in. My French has been pretty good for a number of years. So really the only French I'm doing now is once a week when we have our French group. And interestingly, I have found my French keeps getting, the more I do Greek, the worse my French gets because I'm just the default foreign language in my brain now has become Greek. So I struggle to do my French as fluently as I used to. And in fact, these days, sometimes I have days where I can't remember the English word for things. And so I actually, I don't know what to tell you for that. I think learning 2 or 3 languages at the same time would really be tough because they're either going to be very different from one another, like English and Greek, or French and Japanese, which has one level of problems, or they're very similar. I can imagine trying to learn French and Spanish at the same time could be difficult because they're so similar that you could easily start cross-pollinating your French and your Spanish. So I'd be curious to give it a try. Like I said, with all of this stuff, try it and see what works and what doesn't. I think you will very quickly find out whether those things make your brain explode or not. Someone asks, could I email you? Actually, yes. And I will. Robert usually sends out my email, but I will. I am always happy to take people's emails. I am just jeffklapes@gmail.com. Oops. If I could spell. jeffklapes@gmail.com. Feel free to email me, and my Instagram is just my first and last names on Instagram. So yes, I am happy to take any questions by email. Do I have any advice for people that struggle with self-motivation? Yes, get somebody else to motivate you. That's exactly why I originally chose to pay money for a teacher. It's why when I wanted to learn Spanish, I got Spanish for Dummies and I got, all that kind of stuff. But you need to make yourself do it. So how did I do it? I found a Spanish class at the adult ed where I had to go every week and a teacher gave me homework and I had to do it. After doing that for a while and my language got a little bit better, I found that self-motivation was easier because I wasn't starting from scratch. But I think whatever you're trying to do, language learning is something that requires, like diet, like exercise, like anything, whether you're trying to build a habit or break a habit, you need to keep at it. There are apps, actually. There are motivation apps, which I haven't used myself, but some people find them useful, that remind you, like, at 10 o'clock today, you promised to do this. There are tasks lists and all kinds of ways that you can do that. For me, the answer was paying a human being to give me homework. That may not work for you. It certainly doesn't work for exercise. I know plenty of people who, right after New Year's every year, they think that the best way to motivate their new exercise regime is to pay money for it. If I'm paying $30 a month, I'm going to do it. And of course they don't. They go for the first month and then they quit. So it's kind of up to you, but make a schedule, reward yourself when you do something good. If you get through all of your 50 vocabulary words in your flashcards, give yourself a reward. I find a glass of wine really helps. Actually, I read somewhere, this is actually a real genuine scientific thing. Um, Alcohol, not that I'm recommending alcohol for everybody, but they have found that the part of the brain that has to do with motivation and confidence, particularly self-confidence, is relaxed when you drink alcohol. And I have always found that, particularly when I'm traveling, a glass of wine makes it much easier to talk to people because you're not as nervous. It's very easy to get like, oh, I'm going to make mistakes. Oh, I'm going to be embarrassed. I'm going to make a fool out of myself. And boy, do I have stories I could tell you about making fools out of myself in foreign languages. A glass of wine reduces that. Um, I'm not recommending that you all go out and start drinking. But I do find it interesting that it's kind of fun to learn about how the brain learns and uh, motivates itself and how it experiences stress and embarrassment and memory. So something else that I've enjoyed doing completely independent of learning the language is reading books about the brain, how our minds work, and how to take advantage of uh, the more that you know about how your mind actually does things and processes information, the more you can tailor your learning to what your brain does. Um, I think that's it for the Q&A, but let me look at the chat. Um, oh, there's way more in the chat. Um, oh, and I'm so glad people have mentioned libraries. Yes. Um, I should have mentioned that right at the beginning. I'm embarrassed. I'm a librarian and I didn't do this. Yes, many of you live in places where your local public library subscribes to products, um, some of which I may have shown you, or some of which may be different, that you can use for free because you have a library card. So definitely check out the tools that your local library may have. Pronunciator is one that a lot of libraries have in Massachusetts. I know a lot of us moved to that because it was very inexpensive and it's actually pretty good. And of course, libraries also very often have physical things that you can borrow, textbooks, uh, Spanish for Dummies, um, DVD or CD packages that have a book and an audio that go together, and so forth. There's various people recommending. Robert, you know what you might, I don't know if you can do this or not, but if you could, because a lot of the things that people are recommending in the chat um, are things that I may not know about personally, so I can't comment on them. But if there's a way that you can include um, the text of the chat, a summary of the chat in whatever you send out to people, I think that might be helpful because a lot of people are just sharing the advice that they or someone they know um, uh, used, and it would give some people some experience. Oh, Karen is mentioning a program that someone took to learn Greek in Chios, and I wonder if that's the same one that I know. I haven't done it myself, but the guy Andreas that I showed you, that I did take a class with, he has a program in Chios, and I bet it's the same one because they do something every summer there. That's a group immersion class on the island of Chios, which is exquisitely beautiful. If you want to go to Greece, I highly recommend Chios. It's a beautiful island. People have various comments about Duolingo and Mango, blah, blah, blah. Frank says, "Σας ευχαριστώ πολύ και πάλι." Paracalo, Frank. Um, Someone's also recommending reverso.com. That's not one I'm familiar with for translation. Um, do I find that traveling is the best way to learn? No. Traveling is something that you should do for its own benefit. Traveling and language learning, I think, go together. But it's perfectly possible to travel and have a wonderful travel experience without learning the language. As I said, my most recent trip, other than Greece, was I spent 10 days in Poland, where I speak almost nothing. I learned a few basic Polish phrases, but other than that, no. And in fact, most of the people I talked to were speaking English at the hotels, the museums. I still had an amazing experience there. The fact that I wasn't speaking Polish did not detract from the enjoyment that I got out of it. If I had spoken Polish, would it have been better? Probably yes. But it's still, I don't think you have to be able to speak in order to travel. And I don't think that you need to travel in order to learn. You can definitely learn a language. Think about, particularly if for those of you who live in the Boston area or any other relatively urban area, there's probably lots of foreign languages spoken around, particularly from immigrant populations. It's fun to go to a restaurant and see if you can speak the language of the people who are there. Actually, another funny anecdote is when I was in Poland, I went to a Polish restaurant where I got talking to my server, who actually was married to the owner. She was Polish. She married a Greek guy. So I ended up talking to the owner of the Polish restaurant in Greek. Who would have thought? The Greek learned Polish from his wife. The Polish woman was learning Greek from her husband. The world gets smaller. And so it was just a kind of fun way to learn things. Blah, blah, blah. Someone asked about Japan. I have no experience with Japanese. So I couldn't recommend one of those, but most of the things that I mentioned in today's program, Japanese is definitely one of the languages. Japanese and Chinese are almost always, of all the Asian languages, you're most likely to find things that do Japanese and Chinese. My favorite parts of Greece and France to visit, I could spend the next half hour talking about that. So come to one of my other programs and we'll talk about those. What is Pronunciator? A couple of people have mentioned that it's a program similar to things like Duolingo and Mango and those other online apps. It's just a different company, but it happens to be it's a program whose primary market is public libraries. So that and it's also relatively expensive, which is good for public libraries. So many public libraries have Pronunciator. But it's a similar style of learning to things like Duolingo and Babbel and those others. Someone's mentioned a couple of things about Italian. Someone's doing 5 different languages this fall in different levels. Estonian, Dutch. Oh my God, good luck to you. Bravo, Sue. I keep wanting to learn Arabic, just because it's a language I've always wanted to learn. And there's something about the written language, of course, it's just so gorgeous. And the older I get, the more I realize, oh my God, there's a limited amount of time in my life to learn all these things. So for the moment, I'm focusing on keeping my French manageable and trying to get my Greek fluent enough that I feel really confident in it. So that's where I am these days. But anyway, like I said, Robert will give you my email. I would love to talk more with people about it. So do feel free to send me your comments and ask me any questions, and we can have a personal conversation about things we didn't have time to do here. So I think that's the end of all the questions and comments. So thank you for joining me. Robert, I don't think we have another program scheduled. Actually, let me.
You have too much traveling, Jeff. Yeah, we don't have anything on the books right now.
I'm going back to Greece this Saturday, actually. But let me take a quick look at my upcoming schedule to see. I don't think we've scheduled anything.
Right.
No, I do. I'm doing this exact same program in person at the Wakefield Library in November.
Great.
So if you would like to talk to me in person about this, it'll be the same program, but obviously a little bit different. Or if you know anybody who would like to attend, who missed it, that will be at the Wakefield Library on November 12th. I'm doing a Zoom program on Krakow, which I've already done with Robert for Tewksbury, but if you missed that, I'll be doing that again in November. I'll be doing an in-person program on Krakow in Wakefield, and I will be doing an in-person program in Winchester on Panama. And then I will be doing my most recent Greek Islands program in Danvers at the end of January. So all of that stuff gets posted on my Instagram. So if you follow me on Instagram, you'll see, in addition to beautiful pictures of Greece, you will see I always do promos of any of my upcoming programs, whether they're in person or online.
Yeah,
so I hope
Jeff,
to see you at some of those.
I'll certainly be in touch, Jeff, regarding something for November or December.
Yep.
I'll include Jeff's Instagram account, website address for those who in the follow-up email. So, yep. And even if you don't subscribe to Instagram, if you don't have Instagram, you can still click on the link and see.
You can always see it. Yeah. I will be going to Seville in Spain in November, and as soon as I get back, I will be putting together a travel program on that. So it's very likely that the next time we do a program for Tewksbury, it might very well be that one. So
we're on the cutting edge here in Tewksbury. We always get Jeff's latest stuff, so we're excited about that.
You are always my first.
There we go. We appreciate that, Jeff. So, folks, let's give Jeff a big virtual round of applause for a great presentation. Look for an email from me, hopefully by 5 o'clock, with a link to the recording. And please, please, please take the feedback survey when you exit the Zoom. So thank you all so much. I'm going to drink a little more alcohol than usual now after listening to this talk. And Jeff, I hope you have a great trip in Greece. Good luck on Saturday.
Thank you. Thanks everyone for joining me, and hope to see you some other program next time.
Yeah. Bye-bye.